Hello, welcome back to the Villa View. It's time for a transfer talk in association with Luke Roper. If you use the code TVV20, you will get 20% off everything Luke Roper has to offer, including their new Dapper Villain range, which is Dapper. So go and have a look at it and treat yourself if you've got the cash. I'm Dan Bardell with Dog, joined by Neil Dunworth to talk about Villa's transfer plans and in the main, Alex Moreno. Neil, now I know you've already done a podcast on him on your channel, Fingers to the Pulse, on For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. Player I've got to say I didn't know a load about, but I've been looking at him in the last few days. I was at Sky yesterday and Kev Hatchard, who is a European football expert, was speaking to me about him, and he gave me the nod that that was happening yesterday whilst I was on shift at Sky Sports News, and he said he'll be a good signing for Villa, because I was questioning, do we need a left back? Because we spent 25 million on a 29-year-old left back last January, and here we are buying another 29-year-old left back in Moreno. But I think there's two things that are key here, Neil, is that we both have said many times this Villa side is very one-paced. We lack pace. Now, Alex Moreno provides that in absolute abundance. The second thing is it's worth looking at how Emery set teams up for Villarreal. And just because you're a left back and, like, at the moment, just because you're a central midfielder, doesn't mean that that's the position you're actually going to start in. So actually, there is a case that Alex Moreno and Luca Dean could both start, and Moreno could be used wide on the left flank. I watched his YouTube compilation before I came on, and as always with YouTube compilations, we all know that makes you look like the best player in the world. And yes, this guy looks like a cross between Roberto Carlos and I can't think of another historically good left back, but he looks very good on his YouTube compilation anyway. But Neil, that's what I know. Tell me what you know.
Yeah, look, I suppose there's been a lot of questions with regards to this guy, and like yourself, I'm not going to say that I was any aficionado of Real Betis, although I will tell you a funny story. That I stayed in a hotel in Seville just before COVID, and when we got to the hotel room, the curtains were closed. And when I opened up the curtains, I could literally see right into the Betis stadium. Literally, if there was a game on that weekend, in the one weekend that they were playing away from home, and I was staying there, and I was bang, I could see straight into it. It's a lovely part of town, lovely place to live in, and in fairness, he's coming to a lovely place to live in here in B6.
I thought you were going to say that. I opened the curtains, and Alex
And
Moreno
there
was
he
there
was
in a Villa shirt, telling me that he was going to come to Aston Villa Football Club.
No, that's my little Betty's anecdote, but I didn't know a whole pile about him, to be honest with you. And a lot of people have, I suppose rightfully kind of asked questions about him throughout the last few days. He's played at middling teams within Spain, not really at any international shouts, and he's kind of a late bloomer, and he's somebody that's found a kind of style of play since he's been paired up with Manuel Pellegrini in Betis, and over the last 2 years he's really flourished, brought them to their highest finish in La Liga in some time last season, finishing fifth, won the Copa del Rey last season as well, which is something that Betis don't do on a regular basis. But a lot of the reason is that he's been a kind of number one, a steadying force in defence, it seems, and also he's been very much an outlet for carrying the ball for them on the left hand side. And I listened to a small bit, to Sky Sports, and I think it might have been David Reed that was talking about him today.
Yeah, I watched that before I came on.
Yeah, and he mentioned something that I've actually been saying as well about the difference, I think, between these two players. The most striking difference is that Luca Dean is the person who needs to be on the end of the attack, as in to start it. He needs to be that outlet, to be positioned there to get the ball and to cross that ball in. Whereas Alex Moreno can carry the ball into attack and is better in transition and doesn't need to, like, sometimes Villa's attack, specifically under Steven Gerrard, the argument could be made that it was slow because we were waiting for the howitzer in Luca Dean to get into position to be able to cross the ball. Whereas that could slow it down, you don't have that outlet out there. That's poor planning. I think it's poor game planning as well, but that's for a completely different conversation. Luke Dean, as well, as I've said previously, one of the differences I think between these two players is that Moreno is going to tackle more. He likes to tackle more. He has more tackles. Statistically, he's more tackles. He's the same amount of interceptions, the same amount of ball recoveries as Luke Dean, but he's far outpacing him in the amount of tackles that he attempts and successful tackles per game. Now, Luca Dean, one thing that I've always noticed with him, and I'm beginning to say it a bit more recently as well, and maybe at inopportune times, but Luca Dean's defending has been pretty suspect at times. And
Yeah.
we've gotten away with it in some games since Emery has come in, but we could certainly see suspect defending from him under Steven Gerrard. It wasn't always the case. I firmly believe that because of the way we used our two fullbacks under Gerrard, both Digne and Cash became lazy defenders and are having difficulty getting out of that slump. So
Yeah, it's tough to make the transition, isn't it, when you change manager? Before we continue, I was laughing, not at you whilst you were talking. You probably didn't even see me laughing because you were so deep in what you were saying. Producer, why have we got Aston Villa v Stevenage at the bottom of the screen? No one wants to remember that. No. Everyone's still horrified by Villa being knocked out by Stevenage. I started to notice it. Wow, there it goes. There, unbelievable. I can't believe it. You had one job and you couldn't. I can't believe it's taken me noticing that while we're on air. Yeah, no one wants to talk about Aston Villa Stevenage, and we will not. Dave Reed used a line that I liked. He described Luca Dean as more of a stand and deliver player. And from watching the clips that I've watched today and reading and speaking to Kevin Hatchard yesterday, like you said as well, Moreno will bomb on and he'll get on the kind of the end of things, where he'll be on the end of a fluid attack and then be the one to cross the ball in. When we pass to Luca Dean, he isn't gonna beat a man. He isn't gonna get beyond people. He likes to be deep and cross the ball from deep, and that he has got a good delivery, Luca Dean. I don't think it's something we've seen enough of at all, but I know from his time at Everton and playing for France, he's got an excellent delivery. But we're just not seeing that. So Emery will have identified a few positions. Perhaps left back wouldn't have been one that you would have picked out, but Ludwig Augustinsson, his name Augustinsson, sorry, the name I always get wrong. He's picked up an injury. We don't know how bad that is. You'd say then still, Neil, well, you've got Luca Dean and Ashley Young, but like I said at the start, there's a chance that this guy may play further forward.
So sorry, and that's something I wanted to mention as well. It's not outside the realms of possibility that these two players line up on the left-hand side together. It's not out of the realms of possibility at all. And to be honest with you, I actually think that is probably the favorite. Like if you were to, in betting terms, that's probably what Unai Emery is thinking at the moment. And the reason I think that is that this guy's played as a winger before. Moreno has played as a winger. A lot of people think that he's a wing back, specifically playing in La Liga. Obviously, he's got that. He's the type of Jordi Alba type player as well, who likes to get forward, can tackle back. But at the end of the day, he's made his name because he's had some pulsating runs, cutting inside, and listening to David Reed as well. I agree with him from watching some footage on Alex Moreno, is that he does like to get into the box a small bit more, as opposed to, as you say, stand outside the box 10 yards away from the defender and cross that ball in. He likes to take the game to defender, try and get around him. We're missing pace. This guy is
pace. A lack of pace is frightening.
Yeah, and while this guy isn't he's not going to be Usain Bolt on the wing. He knows how to dribble. He's dribbled. He's pretty decent at it. And he came up through La Masia as well with Barcelona. He spent 2 years, I think, there in his youth career. Before moving on, he dropped down the leagues to start his career. Ended up at I think it was Mallorca. And then Vallecano, and then on towards Betis from there. So he's had to kind of really work his way up through the leagues again. But I think AVFC Stato had a stat in there to say that Luca Dean and Alex Moreno have played exactly the same number of games in their career, which is interesting. I don't know why it's interesting, but it is.
Similar age profile, aren't they? So they've obviously developed a similar pace, and they're going to end up in the same place by the looks of things. It looks like he's flying over tomorrow, from what Sky was saying. You'd expect this one to be pretty inevitable at this point, unless something funny comes up in the medical or the personal terms. You'd expect the player wants to make the move, travelling over to Birmingham. He'd want to come. Obviously, Villa are going to be looking at other positions as well, which we will come on to. Owen Bradley, whose name I've probably just absolutely murdered, says that
it's Owen. That's the Irish spelling.
Owen Bradley.
It's an Irish spelling one.
I should have come to you, shouldn't I? Yeah. He's saying, do you think Ludwig's loan is cut short and allows us to free up a loan spot? I guess it's possible, but loans are funny ones nowadays. You're seeing with Wout Weghorst going to Manchester United, that Manchester United want him. I think Burnley are probably quite keen for him to go to Manchester United. The player's quite keen to go to Manchester United, but Besiktas don't really want him to go, so they're going to want some compensation if that moves to happen. So we've seen it before. Silamani was due to come to Villa years and years ago when we ended up with Borja Baston, and there was complications with cutting short his his loan there as well. So we've seen before that cutting loans short, it's not always easy, but ultimately I think if the player wants to cut the loan short, or the club wants to cut the loan short, they usually find a way of making it happen. I was talking to our good friend Chris Dolan yesterday, I think it was, and we were talking about Moreno, and he said something quite interesting that I thought. He kind of said it's another middle of the road signing, which probably leads to a middle of the road player, just in terms of the price. Signing a player for 12 million. 12 million doesn't get you that much nowadays in the transfer market. Would you say that's a fair assessment? I'm not sure of his contract details. In all honesty, I'm not sure if that's anything to do with the fee. But I kind of take his point on board that if you're spending £12 million on a player, it's not loads in the modern day transfer window. So they're concerned with that.
Look, I suppose really what I'm going to say with regards to this, not everybody's going to agree with, and I fully understand that. But do you think any Villarreal fan cared how much the players they brought in cost when they got to and won Europa League final? And the reason I bring that up is because they were a team built out of nothing with this manager. So it's not me just picking a team out of thin air. It's just the relevance that Unai Emery brings to the conversation. I think that it's down to coaching. We know that this guy is detail. That Unai Emery is detail driven. He's obviously needs people to be bought in from a positional point of view, from a I suppose an eat, sleep, drink football point of view. And if you're not, he's going to try and blend you into that. I would have never said Etienne Capoue was one of those players, but he obviously bought into what Emery was.
Coquelin as well. I never particularly rated him at Arsenal, went to Villarreal and did well.
Yeah, well, I always thought Coquelin liked playing football, if that makes sense. But I thought Etienne Capoue was a small bit hot-headed, or there was something about him whereby he was loose and he didn't really he could give or take football. But when he went to Villarreal, he's still kicking up dust out there and he's playing pretty well. And Emery kind of really reinvigorated his career again. So that's kind of where I go for this. If we had Steven Gerrard now, I think the two of us would probably be scratching our heads, going, we're raising the age profile of the squad again. I said as well, I've been pretty steadfast in this as well, that because if you look at how Unai Emery works, when he comes into a team, he needs to implement his style. He does like to have one or two players that are a bit older in the team. Once again, people don't want to hear that, and that's fine. But he's done it everywhere he's been. He's brought in one or two older players, or if they've been in the squad, he's brought them back in to try and offer a small bit of coherency to the team. And without bringing up the PTSD of the weekend again, while we had players in there,
get the badge back up, Adam. Come on, he loves those two badges.
While we had players in the team, as I say, we were lacking leadership, we were lacking discipline, we were lacking application at times in that game, specifically for the last 4 minutes. And look where it left us. So I've got on a bit of a tangent there. I would have a very different reaction to this, only for the fact that I've seen with Sevilla how he worked wonders without spending an awful lot at Sevilla. I've seen how he worked wonders at Villarreal without spending an awful lot. And I've also seen, we've also seen how he did relatively well at Arsenal, having their highest finish since in quite a period of time. I think it was, I probably butchered that statistic. I don't know what it is anymore, but he did a pretty decent job at Arsenal. It was unfairly castigated for it, I think, at the time, and then was bombed out. So, I think he's worth the benefit of the doubt in this one. It's a 3.5-year deal by all accounts, so it'll bring him up to 32, 33. From that point of view, I think we see Digne and Moreno probably start some games together, if not most games together. And I think he plays a small bit further forward. But once again, we're going to have to see what happens once he hits the grass for Aston Villa.
Yeah, I'm desperate to see someone who's fast, in all honesty. It sounds quite basic, but Villa really do lack pace. Watkins is relatively fast. Ramsey's pretty quick and very good at driving with the ball. When he has the ball, he can drive with the ball at pace. Bailey's got some pace, but he's very up and down. But overall, Villa don't have too much pace to call upon. And I think if you look, you've just said he's probably going to be playing midfield, which I agree with. If you look at Luka Dean and Matty Cash, neither of them is particularly blessed with massive pace. So I think in the fullback position, you do really want one of your fullbacks to be quick, not just attacking wise, I'm talking defensively as well. You see how England operate with Kyle Walker and his recovery pace. It's useful having some pace into that back four. So it'd be interesting. He'll obviously play in both positions, I suspect, if he signs. Just off the back of what you said, a couple of things that sprung to my mind whilst you were talking. I think one, ultimately, we've brought in this manager who's got so much pedigree and is one of the best managerial appointments we've made in my lifetime. Ultimately, if he wants a player, we as fans should go along with that, because you have to trust him. And really, you have to give managers what they want. Otherwise, they're going to struggle to implement their plan. So him getting someone who he thinks can play his style of football, that's a positive thing. You said about the 29-year-old thing. I do think it's a little bit of a concern. I do find in defence, I don't mind an older player as much. I quite like my defenders being experienced, but 29-year-old Diego Carlos, I think Luca D was 29 when we signed as well. There is a pattern emerging of the defenders that we signed, and we haven't really signed a young up and coming defender for a while now. Obviously, we've got Josh Feeney and we've got I think it's Kerr, who we've signed for little money coming through the academy. Kerr Smith is his name as well. So we are developing in the future as well. But I think ideally, really, you would want some like left back, for example. You'd want an experienced option and then a youngish option. I guess that was how ultimately you would like to work. But Villa are going to have two experienced players, although it may be that Moreno plays further forward. Let's move on from him then, Neil. I mean, okay. Let's not move on. Neil's got something to say.
Yeah, just before I think at the start of this season, we've got a lot of players out on loan at the moment as well. At the start of this season, I think it would have been fair to say there would have been maybe a conversation around, does Ben Crescene, I can never remember how to pronounce his name. Does he maybe have a shot? Yeah, does he have a shot maybe of being that understudy at left back? I know he's gone to Kilmarnock. Some of these loans don't work out, but he's a very promising player. A lot of people like him. He's very well thought of around the academy as well. On the right-hand side of Kane Kessler-Hayden. And while you don't want to come in and just put all your eggs in that basket from that point of view, I suppose, we might be under thinking about what maybe the plans for integration of those guys over the next maybe year to 18 months might be within the first team. And as we know, we all want our academy players to be within the team as well. Maybe they come back in January as well and start to, I was nearly going to say maybe start a cup game or two, but
not this year,
that one could have got me in trouble, couldn't it?
Yeah, not this year, mate.
I'm still not
at least we can laugh about it now, because let me tell you, I would not have laughed on Sunday night.
No, I wouldn't either. Absolutely not. But as I say, there's, like, as I say, we don't even know 10% of what Unai Emery's plans are at the moment. It's not like we can look into the crystal ball like we kind of could with Steven Gerrard and go, what are we signing here? When we signed some players, and he signed obviously some good players. Diego Carlos, if that was his signing, I'm hoping he comes back in the next few. Kamara obviously is going to be somebody as well, and we'll judge those in time to come. So just like that, we're going to judge who Emery signs in time to come as well. But as I say, I think the weekend has maybe gotten a lot more thought around the fact of, I'm not going to say player character, because that's unfair, because I'm sure every single player in that field wanted to win at the weekend, but application and drive, I think, might have been missing from good parts of that 90 minutes.
Well, let's hope he's not reminiscent of Tony Moon, although I wouldn't want him going to the Emirates and scoring a guy. Our last left back that we signed from La Liga didn't work out fantastic, but Villa's transfer policy at that point was so scattergun. It was literally hit and miss with some of the players we bought. We went wild buying obscure players at that time under Paul Lambert. The other thing we could discuss is, the player's got no Premier League experience, but it differs from player to player, doesn't it? He might come in and hitting the ground absolutely running. It might be tough to acclimatise to the Premier League from La Liga. We don't know until the player signs. But it's looking like he's going to be on board this week. So keep your eye on that and we'll see what happens. Where is he? I just saw something in the comments that interests me. Scott Target. Don't know if he's any relation to Matty, although I think that's spelled differently, actually.
It's Taggart.
Taggart. Oh, I tell you what's wrong with me this evening. Eyes are deceiving me. Danjuma in talks with Everton. I think Sky might be reporting that at the moment. I'm not 100% sure. All I'll say is keep an eye on that, because I think something may well be happening with Danjuma to Villa. So just keep your eye on that one. I'm not going into too much detail, but that's one that I think may progress with Villa. Just because he's in talks with someone else doesn't mean he couldn't move to Villa. I think Villa are fairly well moved on with a forward player, and it wouldn't surprise me if it was him at
I,
all.
I
So
s-
keep your eye on that one.
this is the first you said of it, and I think I suppose if, like it would make sense. It would make
It makes
100% sense.
absolute sense.
You know, why if Everton are in there and we're not having conversations there, that's where I would be asking questions. I'd be asking questions more about that than I would be why are we signing Alex Moreno? If that because we
Yeah.
need a winger. Emery said we want a winger and somebody who he's elevated to the next level within European football is potentially available to go to Everton and we wouldn't pick up the phone.
I mean, look, I could be wrong, obviously, but I've
Of
heard a couple of
course, yeah.
things. I've heard a couple of things before. Come on, I would expect in the next couple of days, you'll start to hear about Danjuma to Villa. And if you're not, don't hate me. I'm sorry if you don't hear that. I apologise, but I think in the next couple of days you'll start to hear stuff about that. So yeah, keep your eye on that one. He's a player I would really like. Neil wasn't a massive success at Bournemouth. Has gone to Villarreal and done very well. The key thing there is that he was working under Emery at Villarreal. There was a piece with him on the Athletic maybe 3-4 months ago, and you go and find it if you're an Athletic subscriber. And he was talking about his relationship with Unai Emery and working under him. And Danjuma was absolutely waxing lyrical about Unai Emery, saying what a good manager he was, what a good person he was. So, like Neil says, if he's available and we let him go to Everton when we're in the market for exactly that type of player, I'd be absolutely shocked.
Mm. And there was a spurious link as well, talking about players who've played for Emery before and relationships with them. L'Equipe mentioned Guendouzi
Yeah, you told me that
earlier
before we
on today.
came on. I hadn't
Yeah,
heard that before I came on. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a interesting one, actually. He would make sense as well because although I think he's a central midfielder, again, Emery's formations make absolutely no sense, do they? Though he's a central midfielder, he'd probably play well in one of those hybrid wide midfield / coming inside roles. Guendouzi, he's got a fantastic engine, works really hard. Questions over his attitude, and obviously that's inevitably why he
Mm.
ended up leaving Arsenal because Arteta's standards with that kind of thing are extremely high. But Guendouzi was in the France squad that got to the World Cup final. You said to me before we came on, the French media were up in arms that this guy wasn't starting and Rabiot was. Guendouzi's a good player. I watched him play I've watched him play a couple of times in the Champions League this season as well. Guendouzi is a very good player. We don't know how concrete the links are, but he'd actually be someone I'd quite like to see join.
And Emery signed him for Arsenal as an 18-year
Yeah,
old. And when, if memory serves me right, I remember hearing, I think it could have been reported on something like Talksport or something at the time that Guendouzi had this big, massive Twitter post like after Villarreal won the Europa League, just basically waxing lyrically about
yeah.
saying he was a genius and hats off to him and he's such a smart football manager. So obviously there's mutual respect there. Look, I know, and once again, people mightn't like that link, and that's okay. We were linked with El Neni during the weekend as well. People mightn't like that link, and that's fine.
I like
But
that
I
link. Young as well relatively young. So I think he's only about 20,
so
22,
just gone
23. Is he
23,
Guendouzi?
just gone
Yeah, he is.
23. Guendouzi,
We're
not a
going on
football
about
kid.
age. That's a good age, and he, as you say, he's played a lot of football, amassed a lot of experience in a relatively short space of time. Guendouzi, and again, he was at Arsenal in a difficult time, really. A bit like Arteta had to ride out his difficult time with Arsenal, and you're seeing
Yeah.
the fruits of it now. If Guendouzi hadn't have been bombed because of his attitude, and actually, the Arsenal fans always liked him as well. Guendouzi, I thought every time I used to watch it for Arsenal, I liked him.
Yeah, and that was 2020. He was 20 years of age. Like attitude at 20 years of age and attitude at 23 years of age are completely different. He's obviously become a French international since he's been bombed, since he was moved on to Hertha Berlin. I think he went on loan at Arsenal. He's become a French international, you know. And now, look, I'm going to be honest. You can become a French international with attitude issues. Just look at Paul Pogba. But what I'm saying is, there the
Look at the whole
maturity must
team.
have come. Yeah, look at the whole team. Yeah, look at the whole team.
Look at the 26-man squad.
But there is a growth period there as well, as you say. And once again, at 20 years of age, he had played over 100 senior games for 100 senior games at 20 years of age. So that's something that needs to be taken into account as well. He's a ton of games played. I'm just looking up here. He's nearly 200 games played in senior football, and he's only
incredible.
23 years of age. He'll be 24 in April. Wow.
Yeah. They're the couple, the last two that we talked about, Danjuma and Guendouzi. They're two I'd actually really like. And I think they'd improve us straight away as well. I've seen a few people say, well, Moreno will come in and improve us straight away. personally, I'm just being honest, I haven't seen loads of him. And I think at
I
the
don't
start of the
know.
window, I expected us. I said for a month or so, I expect us to sign two players, a midfielder and kind of a forward. I don't know whether Danjuma would be that forward if he came in. I wasn't taking into account that we might sign a left back. I didn't see that
Yeah,
coming at all. But
that's true.
2 or 3 signings will be the limit of what we do in January. And if it's Moreno, Guendouzi, and Danjuma, I'd need to see the Guendouzi rumor pop up somewhere else. I think the Danjuma is far more likely than Guendouzi, but we need freshening up a little. We saw that at the weekend. We need freshening up. We need a bit more depth and a bit more strength. And those players would not only provide competition, but I think they provide improvement as well.
Mm. Dan, can I ask a question? We spoke about strikers, or
Sure.
you alluded to strikers there. Um, am I mad to think that there's a lack of strikers within Europe in general at the moment? And I'll give you my reasoning.
Yeah, you are. No, you're not
Huge
mad.
lack.
Sorry, you're
Why?
not mad.
Oh, I'm not mad. Okay.
No, you're not mad. So obviously, I've been at Sky. I've done 3 shifts now, and every day I'm in. Like, let me tell you, there's far people don't know the work, by the way, that goes into those kind of shows. Like, it's
Yes,
absolutely incredible.
makeup
I
and
would have. Oh
changing your
yeah, there's a lot.
jacket and
There's a lot of makeup going on. Let me tell you, but I would have never realised just watching how much research and how much ratification there has to be for something to be spoken about. So many teams want strikers. It's ridiculous. But if look at the fact Manchester United, all their history, such a big club pushing to be back in the Champions League this season. They're looking like they're going to sign Wout Weghorst, which tells you how many strikers there are available in the market. I mean, it's incredible that João Felix is going to Chelsea. Actually,
yeah.
I didn't see that one coming at all. But Chelsea just seem to jump on absolutely
Financial
everything.
fair play is a myth.
Mate, if a player's linked with Arsenal, Manchester United, Newcastle, Spurs, they're going to Chelsea. Is basically what I've learned over.
And
over
let's
the last 12
forget as well, they've already agreed to pay 60 million for Nkuku in July.
Yeah, that's not quite gone. I thought that had gone through actually, and then I was talking yesterday, and it hasn't actually fully gone through yet. That one, which I was surprised at. But what I'm trying to say is, so many teams want strikers, and there just aren't any out there really. And the way Villa play and the way Emery will want to play, if Villa are signing someone like Danjuma or looking at someone like Danjuma, and we've just spoken about Moreno coming in and playing as a wide midfielder. I think the forward option may well be someone who you wouldn't class as a centre forward, if that makes sense. I think that could end up happening because there isn't an awful lot of central strikers around who would come in and improve us. Teams are struggling. Everton bought Maupay in the summer, pretty much because I don't think there was much else around. Calvert-Lewin's struggled with injuries, but Everton really need a goal scorer. That they want a striker. There isn't one coming. The extent I said this yesterday on Sky. Sorry, no, I said this yesterday on Sky. Southampton are looking at the obscure market to bring in a goal scorer and bring in a striker. Looking like they're going to bring a couple of players maybe in from France. Now, I think that means that Che Adams would potentially be let go from Southampton. He's been linked with Everton in the past. But, that's no disrespect to Che Adams. Obviously, we know who he used to play for. We're not talking about top strikers moving to Premier League teams there. We're talking about Wout Weghorst going to Manchester United, and I'm now doing a domino effect and speculating about Che Adams going to Everton. There isn't an awful lot around, and it's difficult to get a striker at the moment, and it does usually take one to move to have that knock-on effect.
Exactly. And the reason I posed the question was, you even look back at the World Cup, Germany had no striker in their team.
Yeah, they had Moukoko on the bench who they didn't use at all, which surprised me.
Moukoko is he's 5'8".
He's still a striker, and he's still twice the height. He's still twice the height of you as well now.
But there's no. What I'm saying is, you look at top class caliber strikers.
Yeah, fair. Yeah,
you've got Dusan Vlahovic, you've got Robin Lewandowski still, you've got Harry Kane, and I'm beginning to run out of names. I know. Look, Mbappe plays wide, that kind of thing. But I'm talking about these
Jesus, Haaland.
Haaland,
even Jesus, I wouldn't say is a stereotypical number. I look at Liverpool sign. They've signed Darwin Núñez. He's very raw. I spent an awful lot of money on him. He's very, 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 very hit or miss. Darwin Núñez, lovely finishes the night against Wolves, but against us was erratic, and that's what they're getting. And look how much he cost. It's so tough with strikers. It really, really is. And that's why I think that our striker isn't going to be a striker, if that makes sense. It's going to be a wide player.
Well, I also think as well sometimes that regardless of who, like and I'm in full agreement. I would love to find the next Christian Benteke. I think it would be fantastic. I think he's
Oh,
a striker that we would need, that type of player. But it's going to be tough. The Premier League, I think, is now so difficult that it's so difficult to get into double figures every year
yeah.
unless you're for teams specifically like ourselves that are changing managers every 2-3 years, have a big squad overturn, and so on and so forth. And what I'm trying to get at here as well is that I can't remember the exact statistic, but is Ollie Watkins like the fourth highest scorer in England from strikers from the last 4 years or something?
Of
Last three
English
years.
strikers, wasn't it? Of
I
English strikers, perhaps.
No, I think it was yeah. Anyway, I can't remember what the statistic was, but what I'm saying here is that there's no guarantee you bring in somebody and they bang you in 20 goals in the Premier League. That's always been the case, but I think it's probably the case now more than it ever has been. So, what I'm getting at here is I would like to take a chance on somebody in the January market, give them 6 months. Maybe they don't hit the ground running and have them ready for September, as opposed to buying someone in September and then we're scratching our heads in January going, oh my God, do we have to go and maybe look at somebody else again? So I'm okay with them taking their time with a striker for the time being. I bloody really want one. Don't get me wrong, I really want one, but I want them to take their time, make sure he fits in the system, and make sure that potentially we're seeing something that people aren't. I would have loved us to take a jump on Thuram. We're going to get outmaneuvered in Thuram. We are not. I'd go so far as to say we aren't signing Marcus Thuram.
Bayern are looking at Marcus Thuram quite heavily. From speaking to Kevin Hatchard yesterday, Bayern are looking at him.
Chelsea.
I mean, Chelsea are looking at me and you right now. Chelsea are looking at everyone now.
I don't want to break any news, but Edward Mendy is on his way out. Sub goalkeeper for Chelsea. Listen, you'll see it break soon.
Thuram, that's a non-starter for me. He's having an exceptional season as well. Thuram, again, Kev Hatchard was saying he always does this when his contract's up for renewal. He seems like that kind of player, but I don't think we've got any chance of him. I'm being honest. At the start of the window, I thought we will sign a striker. Now, and added to the fact that we're signing Moreno and we're all talking about him playing further forward, I'm not convinced we're going to sign what we would describe as a central striker. I think we will sign a forward player, maybe even two, but I don't think they're going to be that goal scorer. And I think people get hung up on goals, obviously, because that's what you play football for. But like you said, the elite teams, to Man City, we're looking at Liverpool, their strikers, usual, their forward players, they get between 15 and 20 goals in the Premier League. Normally, Haaland's obviously going to score 100 goals. We all know that. But down after that, strikers don't really get 20 goals a season anymore, because if they do, they go off to one of those teams. They're a dying breed in the Premier League. Most teams' top scorers flit around between maybe 11 and 15 goals, I would say most.
Yeah.
Ollie Watkins, if you look at his record over the last 3 seasons, did he get into double figures last season?
Double figures last season, double figures the season before, yeah.
That's what strikers do nowadays. And people say Ollie Watkins misses a lot of chances. And yes, he does miss some chances. And I think he offers you a lot of good. He offers you a lot of good as well. But his goal record, I don't think is dissimilar to many strikers out there. It's hard to go and get that striker. And at the moment, the teams that aren't the top 6, that Ollie Watkins' goal record is what strikers get. That's what happens.
Do you think maybe the fan base would love for something like this to happen? Okay, indulge me on this one, and everybody that's listening or watching, there's 338 people watching here. Indulge me in this, and it is pie in the sky. But maybe we start looking at something like, and we're going to have to crack a few eggs to make an omelette here, and we probably will waste money. Like, there are some big names in South America that are young, that are making some waves that could be bought. They're going to cost money. They're going to cost 20 million plus, and we may not see the fruits of their labor for a year and a half. Let's say we went out and we rang up Santos in the morning and we said, "You've got a young lad in your team there, Marcus Leonardo. I think he scored something like 25 goals and 60 appearances for them or something like that. He went on a tear for the Brazilian under-20 team, and we said, take 27 million for him, hold on to him, and we'll take him in July, or even bring him over here and acclimatize him for the next 6 months and keep him low key." Would that get fans? Obviously, that would get fans excited. But would you think, if to take a chance like that, would that be cause for fans to lament the fact that we wasted the money while taking a chance? Because what I'm getting at here is, if we spent money to try and find the next big thing and it didn't work, would fans feel better about that than if we spent money on a 30-year-old striker that came in and didn't work, like we kind of did with Danny Ings? Even though Danny Ings is don't get, like, this isn't the Danny Ings working or not working argument. You know what I'm getting at? I'm talking about different age.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean,
Yeah.
let's face it. There's one thing Villa are au fait at. It's wasting money. We've
Yeah.
been very good at that. I like what you're saying. There's a very Juan Pablo Angel vibes in 2001.
Yeah.
Was it 2001? Yeah, 2001 when Juan
this-
Pablo Angel came in. But Alvarez at City, that's exactly what they did, isn't it? They bought him
for him too.
They bought him a year ago. They bought him a year. He's going to look like I copied David Starrs there. I only just saw the Juan Pablo Angel thing that you said. Literally, it looks like I've copied you. I already had that in my mind, David Starrs. I was not trying to discredit you or not give you the credit. I literally popped into my head and then it appeared on the screen afterwards. Man City did it with Alvarez. They bought Alvarez, kept him where he was till the end of the season last year. Now he's coming in August and he looks at him. If Haaland does get injured, he looks like he'll be a pretty able deputy. Can also play wide. I don't think I'm not convinced we were ever in for him. In all honesty, Alvarez, our scouting network doesn't seem to spread that far. Would be what I would say. Villa's transfer strategy has not been that kind of signing since Juan Pablo Angel. I can't think of any other South American player that has come in from South America since then. I could be completely wrong, but I don't remember when nothing's leaping out to me.
We were linked with a Uruguayan guy, Arasqueta, who played in the World Cup. He's actually scored 2 goals for Uruguay in the World Cup. We were linked with him I think Smith's last summer before he left. I think we were linked with him. But yeah, we don't get a ton of links to the South American players. So I was just saying, why don't we throw it up in its head? If we can't find this striker within Europe, how's about we speculate and get one of the better strikers in South America? I can guarantee you Newcastle are going to go down this route. Somebody in the
I thought you were going to say, I'm going to guarantee Newcastle are going to go down. Then I was like, Neil stuck in 12 months ago.
No, but I can guarantee, like, somebody's going to go down this route very, very quickly. Arguably, Chelsea did it by buying Andre Santos, bringing him in, that midfielder.
Yeah, it's that kind of signing, isn't it? It's that kind of sign, isn't it?
And Forest are looking like they're going to sign Danilo from Palmeiras, a very good, and like somebody who's been tipped to flourish, I suppose, and to make that break into the Brazilian team from Palmeiras. They're going to sign him for something like 18 million. So you can find, now this guy I mentioned, Marcus Leonardo, he's no secret, but can he play Premier League football? Can he play? And Premier League football is even different to European football. So this is where you got to speculate to accumulate. It's completely pie in the sky. I 100% agree with it, but I don't know if I can find a striker, or if Aston Villa could find a striker in Europe that I could I could say will guarantee us 10 goals in a season. And like, obviously outside of the big names that are there. And that's the way it is. Strikers are in short supply is the moral of the story here.
Yeah, there's a few things in the comments that have piqued my interest. So Scott Taggart, I can't say his name. Scott Taggart, just need to remember Jerry Taggart, the old Leicester defender. I need to remember that. Teams used to play with 2 strikers up top now only 1. So cuts the pool in half. Even look at our striker, he's a converted winger. As I've said, I very much think that might be what we end up doing again here. Andy Badger saying, Tammy, let's dream. I take Tammy Abraham back in Harvey. He scored the other night. Hasn't had as good a season this season, but he did score the other night. Lee Johnson's playing Football Manager in his 4 years advance, and Villa are ripping it up in the Champions League. He's called Victor Osimhen from Napoli. Yeah,
how come other teams haven't been in for him? That's the thing.
Someone will get him, and it won't be Aston Villa Football Club,
and it won't be cheap.
I would back that to maybe a Manchester United summer move. That would be what I think would happen. I think I'd be happy. Is this true? Andy Carroll at Reading has scored 17 goals. Fair play to him. Is that true? I mean, Jonathan Codger scored 20 odd goals in the Championship the one season, and that probably tells you everything you need to know, because he couldn't get anywhere near it in the Premier League. It was
he's 4 goals for them so far this season, anyway.
Be happy again. He's playing Football Manager. There's something going. Andy Carroll's having a hot streak on Be Happy's Football Manager 23 game. Yeah, they were the one things in the comments that interested me. Callie McLaughlin links to Guendouzi. Callie McLaughlin obviously late to the show because we have already spoke about Guendouzi earlier on in the show. And Scott Tag, I can't say this now. Scott Taggart, he's having a field day in the comments talking about bringing Wesley back. Forget the Wesley. Did he still play for us? He still play for us.
He's still an Aston Villa. Well, he's Levante at the moment. He scored his first goal in about 3 years.
Not in 6 months' time. He won't be. I don't think. I believe is his contract up. in the summer.
Well,
I
put it
think.
this way. Remember, we talked about South American players for 22 million. We've
Oh
kind of
yeah.
tried it with
Oh yeah, we did do that, didn't
Wesley.
we? Yeah, we did
Yeah.
do that. Oh God. Yeah,
Bertrand Diaz is coming there
he
from
came
Gone.
from Belgium though, didn't he?
He did.
We're
He
talking about
did,
going
yeah.
directly
Yeah.
to South America
Direct. Yeah.
and plucking up like Bertrand Diaz is a funny one because feels like he's been around forever as an English striker. He's suddenly become Chilean and gone to play for Chile. Now he's changed his name, and let me tell you, the guy can score goals since he changed his name. I'm going to give myself a more adventurous name and grow my hair long and see what happens to my career.
He is the oldest looking 23-year-old in the world as well.
How is he 23? He's been around forever.
He's born in the 8th of April 1999.
No way, he was born in September 1985, like me. He's been around for ages. Soy AVFC wants Villa to continue the Moreno trend and get Gerard Moreno in, obviously a player who's worked with Emery very recently at Villarreal. I am surprised that's not one that's been linked more because we do tend to be linked with players that Emery has worked with before. But I do think it's going to be Danjuma as the player that Emery has worked with before that comes in that we all expected. Wesley's contract expires in 2024, Andy Badger's telling me. So he's got another year of the high wage and on loan somewhere.
Or you're about to witness the greatest comeback in all of footballing history. Then the man with one leg shorter than the other is going to come back and rip up the Premier League again. He hasn't had a chance in the Premier League since he got injured. He scored 6 goals, I think, that season.
In fairness, I'm speaking about him with a smile on my face. He did have an absolutely horrific injury that he has done exceptionally well to come back from, because I spoke to someone at Villa and the work that had to go into to even get him kicking a ball again was frightening, and they did so well to get him back. And I just remember sitting in the booth with Tom Julian, and Tom Julian absolutely going to town on him, which he never used to do really. And I was sat there really just for podcast entertainment, sticking up for him, even though my heart of hearts I was thinking Tom Julian is absolutely bang on here, but I'm gonna stick up for him anyway and hope he comes good. We'll never know.
Why did people turn against him so quickly? Is what I want to know. He scored 6 goals in 26 appearances, and he just kind of looked like he needed to be coached. He never really gotten any decent coaching in his life, but I remember even after like 3 or 4 games. Okay, he scored against Everton, that ball down the side from of Yerry Mina, and he muscled him out of the way and stuck it in the back of the net. And then about 2 games later, everyone was going, "Ooh, we got to cut ties with this guy. This guy's useless." And I never fully really understood it.
Big balls Tom Julian was coming in and slaying him in a weekly basis in the booth. And I've got to be honest, most people were completely agreeing with him and telling me I was talking rubbish, which is nothing there. So yeah, but as I said,
I'm not saying he was a world beater, but
he absolutely wasn't.
It was quick, like it was quick that it transpired.
It's another 20 million plus player though that we've got absolutely nothing out of, isn't it? Like I say, it's the money Villa have spent on transfers in the last since we got promoted. Really, there've been some successes. But there's been big money spent on people that have not really done anything for Aston Villa Football Club, but it's not a great position.
What was the Belgian centre half we signed? Engels.
I wonder what he's doing now.
Antwerp.
I mean, I've gone well back in time there. Just Akura just popped into my head, and I remembered that my best mate taught him how to swim, and I once added that to his Wikipedia page, and it got taken away. Got taken out straight away. But we've really got off topic. Yeah, just chatting absolute rubbish between ourselves. I think at some point we maybe just do a podcast of just see where it goes, of just chatting absolute rubbish about Villa. But yeah, some people would say we do that anyway. But just
do something like
historical Villa.
What we'll do some night then is we'll do a podathon and see how long we can podcast for and keep people interested in. And I don't know, people can donate somewhere for charity or something like that. That's probably the best. Yeah, 24-hour podcast. Jesus, I'd love to give it a go. Hit the Red Bull.
You know what? I'll do that with you. I'd give that a go. Norwich City, the Norwich City guys have done that before. They raised a lot of money for sure. I'd do that. Let us know in the comments if that's something that would interest you. There's going to be people now thinking, Jesus, I've just struggled to listen to these guys for 40 minutes, let alone 24 hours. But I'd definitely be up for doing that. But yeah, we'll get our thinking caps on. We'll see if we can come back with something a little bit more concrete. I'm sure Luke Roper would help us out and get involved as well. We could get some guests on. I'm sure Tails would come on and talk to us for an hour, maybe, if we look at as well. Yeah, maybe I could get some people on, I reckon, and do that. That's something to look into. Maybe raise some money for the foundation. We'll see if we can do that. That producer wanted for a 24-hour The Villa View show. That I mean, we would like a producer that doesn't put a Aston Villa v Stevenage graphics at the start of a podcast. That's nothing to do with that terrible day as well. That would be nice if you could advertise that vacancy, please, Adam. Thanks ever so much to everyone that's tuned in. There's 361 of you at the moment tuning in. So if you've come late, go back and listen to us at the start, because definitely the more interesting stuff was said at the start of the podcast rather than when you've joined us late. Thanks to Luke Roper for sponsoring this this transfer talk. The code is TVV20 if you want to get 20% off everything that they have to offer. Let's plug ourselves now. Neil, I believe you're approaching a milestone on your channel.
I'm trying to get 5,000 YouTube subscribers.
What are you on at the moment? What are you on at the moment?
Just over 4.5.
Oh, you'll hit that soon. You'll hit that
hopefully
soon.
Hopefully so. And if anybody out there wants to listen to more musings, myself and I've left Paddy, my podcasting co-host, alone for the last 2 days. There was only enough room in that dark room for him for one person. I didn't want to get in there after the Stevenage game. So we're actually doing a podcast at 9:30 tonight. If anybody wants to hear what Paddy thought of, I'm afraid to ask him. I might have to wear a suit of body armor because it could get rough.
But that's pretty much following straight on from this, isn't it? So if you want more Villa content, head over to Neil's channel for the love of Paul McGrath, and you'll be able to listen to Paddy. I mean, again, I said this on Sunday. Why would anyone want to listen to anyone talk about Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 2? I didn't even want to do that podcast.
Well, we're actually doing the Leeds preview, but I don't think I'll be able to stop.
I think I'm with Omar tomorrow doing our preview. I wouldn't. I can tell you for absolute fact now, I will not be mentioning Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 2 in that podcast once. We'll just preview the Leeds game and we will not talk about the FA Cup. I will be under strict instructions. I'm back in Sky Studios on, I've forgotten the day. What day is it today? Tuesday? Is it Tuesday today? Yes, you had to look as well. I'm back in Sky Studios on Thursday for their transfer show. So 9 till 10 is Good Morning Transfers, and then 12 till 1 for Transfer Talk with my Sky colleagues. And hopefully, I imagine this time, I've done 3 shows without mentioning Villa. I think on the 4th, I might get to talk about Villa. So yeah, tune into that if you're looking to see me on the telly, or you want to listen to, hopefully, some stuff about Villa and transfers in the Premier League in general. I love doing it and I'm having an excellent time. Again, thanks for tuning in tonight. Thanks to Adam for his producing and his graphics work. Thanks to Neil, and up the Villa.